I'm Erin Lawler Patterson, the Goodness Chick. Join me on the journey of parenting, navigating together through trends and concerns while avoiding the pitfalls of raising an entitled teen. Let's do this. Thanks for joining me today. I am Erin Lawler Patterson, the Goodness Chick, and I'm really excited for you to be part of our first ever podcast. Welcome. I've been working with kids in the mental health field for the past 15 years, addressing issues that relate from addiction, recovery, anything in mental health, and really anything that pertains to teenagers and their families. I really love my job, regardless of all the heartache, the challenges, craziness. Having the responsibility and privilege to work with kids' hearts seriously leaves me in awe as to how undeserving I am of this. It's seriously nothing short of epic. So with this being my first podcast, I wanted to break down for you what Goodness Chick is, what the mission is, and who I am. Essentially, how the road led me here speaking to you. So I was born and raised in New Jersey. The road led me down to North Carolina to pursue both my undergraduate and graduate degree. My family had moved to the Outer Banks as well from North Carolina from New Jersey. So it was about a 4-hour drive from where they lived to where I was living in Chapel Hill. I have two sisters, Jess and Shayna. And this move happened for them when they were still in high school. And uprooting can be tough for a kid, but it was something at the time that really had brought us together, the move. I was an English major that was very excited about teaching. Essentially, at 21 years old, lighting the world on fire. And it was something that I just was so excited to pursue. In April of 1999, everything kind of changed. The table flipped, and life changed as I had known it. My sister Shayna had her 4 friends, Amanda, Angie, Meg, and Mike, were visiting from New Jersey for their spring break. The kids had endured a bus trip down to spend their spring break visiting Shayna and my family. On April 6th, 11 o'clock in the morning, they were T-boned by a drunk driver traveling at approximately 65 miles per hour. She made no effort to stop. She was way beyond the legal limit. Amanda, Ange, and Meg lost their lives that day, and Shayna hung on for 6 days before she passed away. Mike suffered injuries, but is a survivor, and for that I am eternally grateful. So I'm not really sure if you've ever lost anybody before, but if you haven't, that's awesome. And if you have, especially if it's somebody that's close to you, it's like a sucker punch to your gut 1,000,000 times over. It's kind of like ripping your heart out and handing somebody your heart and having them just pummel it with a rusty spork over and over and over again. And I can tell you confidently, even close to 20 years later, which is crazy to even say that number, I know until I take my last breath, I miss my sister and the girls, because life is and never will be the same. And it was at the trial where the woman was tried that I opted to go against what my parents, every grief book that you could check out of the library or buy on Amazon, and counselors urge you to do. Instead of beginning to grieve and cope, I internalized and became a huge ball of anger, resentment, and stupidity. I hated the drunk driver. I hated the town where it happened. I hated the fact that my sister wasn't here. It would be about 3 years of like pushing people away, hightailing it overseas for a year. Like literally, I walked out of graduation, took a $5,000 loan out from the bank, and in less than a week and a half, I was on a plane to Europe. I was sad. My heart was heavy. And I remember the times that I would pray for God to just kind of like let me no longer exist. I never wanted to kill myself. I just simply didn't want to exist. I spent about a year working, backpacking, like floating my way through Europe. From herding sheep, train hopping, island hopping, life hopping. From sleeping on beaches, park benches, and on the couches of random strangers. It was one of the most eye-opening, crazy train times of my life. I found solace in strangers and joy in trying to learn how to be still. It was a lot of craziness and up and down, but it's something that, it was a journey that I believe I needed to take. And in the scheme of things and where I am presently, it's made me a stronger and better human being. So if we fast forward a bit, after a whole lot of emptiness, anger, and running had left me utterly exhausted, it was at my home church in Nags Head, North Carolina. I literally I couldn't take running anymore. The hurt, the sadness, and the reality that life would never be the same again hit me like a ton of bricks. I remember sitting in the church service and there was a song playing, and I did everything in my power to hold back tears, and I just remember I just had to leave. And I bolted out of church, ran across the bypass onto the beach, where it was literally just me and God. And I remember yelling, I remember crying, and I remember just falling. And I stopped running. And it was at that moment that I released my anger. Being angry at the person who did this was unnecessary. Being angry at God was unfounded. And I simply let go. And as kind of cliche as that sound, but it was so true, and it's ever so true. I just let go and let God. I asked for all the crap to be taken off my shoulders, and that I just wanted to live where breathing heavy and living wasn't a chore anymore. I knew that without my faith that I was nothing. And it was crazy. After walking at that beach, it was the first time that I felt alive again for a long time. And I took a step back, and I remember allowing myself just to begin having a relationship with Jesus Christ again. And I could tell you I haven't looked back yet. I was at the tail end of graduate school when the opportunity kind of presented itself to become a SAC counselor was put my way. I did not know what that was. And at the time I was working part-time at a rehab in North Carolina, which I loved, man. I dug it. In my heart, I knew I wanted to work with teenagers. That was and it had been my passion since entering college. And I knew my heart was no longer in the classroom, but I wanted to be a counselor. I just didn't know how, when, what that looked like. So it's kind of super crazy how life works. The families involved in the crash, we created an organization. It's called the Precious Gems Memorial. That's in memory of the girls, but it's also an effort to educate people about the power of good decision making, and that your decisions have either a positive or a negative attached to it. In your reality, the choice to drink and drive, to get high, to pop pills, whatever, your choices impact others. Life is fleeting. Essentially, don't be a butthead. And a number of the siblings of the girls, myself and my sister Jess included, did a motorcycle ride down the East Coast, hitting a heap of high schools. So while we were in Jersey, a sister school, the high school where I attended, asked a teacher I had in high school had asked me what my plans were. I was unsure, but she offered me the opportunity to intern as a SAC that fall, a student substance awareness coordinator. It's now been shifted to student assistance coordinator. So from that point forward, it was one of the craziest times of my life. I remember my mentor, who's now a dear friend of mine, looking me straight in the eye and saying, man, if you can keep up with me and you still want to do this, you still want to be a SAC after 6 months of seeing what I do, this is what you're supposed to do. And I'm going to give a shout out to Sue Bryan and say thank you, my friend, for showing me the ropes and changing my life. And I'm not sure if you've ever had that overwhelming state of, holy cow, this is it. But at one point, in the midst of like crazy Trainville, the heartache, the tears and joys, I realized that this is what I was born to do. I wanted to work with kids. I wanted to work with the hurting, the overwhelmed, really all of us. This is what I was supposed to do. I wanted to be a SAC. I wanted to be in the trenches of the mental health field, dealing with what so very few were aware of. I didn't really have the job, air quotes, but I did manage to line up a gig for the next few months in New Zealand. Most people told me, you got to chill. You got to sit put. Don't leave the States until you're actually offered the job. And I kind of felt like, honestly, there was part of me that just was not ready to come back to my hometown where I bolted from when I was 18 years old. There was just a lot of unresolved. It was a lot of going back to where my heart, I just wasn't sure if I was ready to go back there yet. So I took a position as a camp counselor on the North Island of New Zealand. I had weekends off where I was able to hitchhike up and down the coast. I met up with friends that I had met to surf on the west side of the North Island, even squished in a bunch of some glacier hiking, zip lining. It was a constant state of stoke with some time that I had in both Australia and Fiji. It was awesome. It was a very powerful time in my life to just recharge before the next chapter of my life began. But the road would lead me back to North Carolina with an interview in New Jersey. In the summer of 2002, I began my journey as a SAC. And I can tell you, years into it, I am still very humbled to have the privilege of working with kids' hearts. It is crazy train, and it is the best crazy train that I've ever experienced. And I kind of look at all of us like onions. Like, we've got layers that so few really know what's beyond those layers. I get like agita when I hear people pass judgment on someone that they don't even know because they think they know what they don't know. And I think at some point each of us are totally guilty of that, but it's more prevalent than it should be. And every single one of us, I don't care who you are, we have our own stuff. And it's our choice as to whether we choose to look at it or not. It's a choice. And every day my hope is to extend a listening ear to kids, to offer them the opportunity to begin working on themselves, to grow, to heal and go forward. And that's scary, man. We could say, work on yourself. You got to, it's improvement, it's growth, which is necessary, but it's really not easy. And it's uncomfortable and it's yucky and gooky. But so many of us stay stationary out of fear of what's ahead, out of fear of dealing with our stuff. And we get into this like rut status. And it's a super bummer. That's totally unnecessary. And I've worked with heaps of parents, family members over the years. And I believe whether someone is facing addiction, recovery, mental health challenges, or just the basic challenges of life, which include all of us, we're not supposed to go at it alone. And communication is critical. Compassion is super necessary. The family component should be fought for. It's so important, the family component, because life, man, can be super tough. And I believe in living fully, making life happen. So I'm going to tell you this. About 10 years ago, I had a goal of publishing a book before I was 40 years old, which it happened just about short of a year before I was 40. Boom, made it happen. And it's something I am super stoked about. It's called Peace, Love, and Goodness Lessons from the Drug Lady. And it's kind of a reflection that I have as a backpacker, addictions counselor, and human being sharing life lessons of self-care, personal challenge, and as a teen, parent, teacher, youth pastor, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, whatever, it's going beyond what's expected and really living, authentically living. And here's the deal. There are different seasons in life. And after Peace, Love, and Goodness was released, and I was so nervous, man, before this came out, because it's a lot of what's in my head, what's in my heart, and different things that I've been through. And it was a risk that I took. And it was something I'm like, if I'm in front of kids, challenging them to be real, challenging them to take challenges and to have a bucket list and a grow and just a push and get out of that rut, how am I going to refrain from doing something that although it's scary, that I am determined and I am focused on doing? So for me, that was a huge point of growth, but also just validation. Like, man, we got to keep pushing. We got to keep going. And after the book came out, I began having parents, grandparents, guardians, whoever from all over the place kind of reach out to me about struggles they were facing. I started Goodness Chick. I was writing before the book came out, had kind of, nothing firmly established, but just things that we need to talk about, things that are in the heart and your head. And I'm having these people write me, Aaron, tell me about this, or what would you suggest about that? And I'm like, this is awesome. I realized, I need to start doing more than what I'm doing. And I was so stoked. So I was like, well, I have 1,000 things in my head and a gazillion, and where do I go with this? And then it just kind of started happening. And it's, man, parenting's hard, and we're not supposed to go at it by ourselves. And I'm hoping, and I'm encouraged, and I'm excited for what this podcast holds. And I encourage you to jump on goodnesschick.com, to jump on my Facebook page, Goodness Chick. Let's learn. Let's glean some insight. I don't have all the answers, man, but I am hoping from the bottom of my heart that I can clarify some things. I can encourage people, because life can be tough. And parenting can be tough. I have a 2-year-old son, and I have both a 21 and 23-year-old stepdaughters. And I got to tell you, man, I am beyond grateful for having the opportunity to be in the lives of 3 amazing people. But also knowing parenting, especially young people, is a legitimate emotional roller coaster. Kind of like, please hold on to the bar. And what I learn every day is that we aren't supposed to try and pretend that we have all the answers, because we don't. I believe that it takes a village. Every day I ask God for patience, wisdom, direction, and peace before I enter the hallways of the high school I work at. As I walk through my neighborhood, man, it's tough. I don't have all the answers, man. Either as a counselor or as a parent. I think sometimes we struggle with our pride and what will others think if we ask questions, if we seek wisdom. But guess what? When you seek out others, when we collaborate, that is super awesome and amazing, because it makes us stronger. So long as you rely and seek wisdom and insight and encouragement from the right people. I'm going to say that with emphasis there. So this is where I am the Goodness Chick, and I do not have all the answers. I'm going to say that again, but I'll tell you one thing. I have worked in the trenches for close to over 15 years, and I'm going to give you all I've got. So welcome to Goodness Chick, Lessons from the Drug Lady. I'm going to ask you if you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you will subscribe. This is the first of many podcasts to come. If you're looking for daily encouragement, hop on Goodness Chick's Facebook page and subscribe to my blog at goodnesschick.com. I hope that you will join and jump on the train, man. And I'm wishing you an awesome week of peace, love, and goodness.